The largest squadron in human history was assembled to defeat the Germans, but they were not told what hell lay ahead. The young pilots are relaxing in a bar, because tomorrow they will have a combat flight. On the 21st of May 1943, German fighters open fire on the bomber. One of the bullets wounds the gunner. The pilots have to turn round and fly back to the base, while another gunner fights off the Krauts. In the spring of 1943, the 100th Bomber Group was sent to England. Each of the lads had never travelled further than their own home, but when the goal of bringing down the Third Reich came up, they decided to take their chances. In a couple of minutes, the squadron goes to a friendly aerodrome. A total of 4 squadrons will participate in the battle. One of them is commanded by 2 majors, Gale and Egan. Blake was a pilot from Seattle and Brenton from Philadelphia. James and Howard are in charge of the bombs. The navigators are Crosby and his friend Joe. Soldiers have a tradition of marking where they're from, and Gale put his mark on the map. Tomorrow their goal was to fly to the main base, but somehow the entire squadron got lost in the clouds. Lieutenant Crosby calibrates the course. Suddenly, Earth appears on the horizon, but it can't be England. Checking his course, Crosby realizes they're flying over France. After only a few seconds, enemy air defenses open fire, but Major Robert manages to turn the aircraft around. In the meantime, other planes land at the base. A little later, Robert shows up. The right landing gear is jammed. The soldiers try to open the landing gear manually, but the engine won't budge. Robert concludes that it is much safer to land on its belly than to use one landing gear. The team groups up and the plane touches the ground. Fortunately, the plane is able to land. Egan asks, how did they manage to fight off the main squadron? Robert covers for Crosby and explains that the electronics in the plane broke down.
You didn't have to cover for me, okay? It's my responsibility.
A few days later, everyone is woken up for their first combat sortie. On the days of the sortie, they are supposed to have a special breakfast: eggs, French toast, fried bacon, and fresh squeezed juice. Some of the soldiers call it their last meal. Chuck accidentally spills the salt. William asks him to throw the salt over his shoulder. They don't want any bad omens.
Hey, who did that? Watch it.
After breakfast, everyone gathers in the barracks and they are described their upcoming mission. Their main target is a submarine base located on the Weser River. There will be 78 bombers involved in the operation. Immediately after dropping the bombs, they will need to fly along the river. Gale's team consists of newcomers, but he asks them not to be afraid. The Germans will not be able to hit them because their aircraft is literally a flying fortress. As many as 12 machine guns protect each side. But even so, to survive, all bombers must stick together, and then the German fighters will not be afraid of them. After climbing up to 3 kilometers, each soldier wears a mask. Visibility is extremely poor, so the 2 bombers almost collide.
Jesus, that was close. That's Cleven's fort.
349 Squadron is fighting off the general order. The lead plane's engine is broken. Their plane will have to return to base. At this time, the Germans learned of the approach and began to prepare defenses. Shells envelop the squadron from all sides. The most faithful begin to pray. 11 minutes to reach the target. Clouds block the target. The major refuses to drop the bombs blindly and asks to find a secondary landmark, but it is not visible. So the major cancels the mission. All planes must return to base. Suddenly, the explosions stop. This can only mean one thing: German fighters on the approach. Moments later, the enemies appear and the gunners open fire. Adamson's plane is destroyed in just 1 second. There are too many fighters, and 349 Squadron is taking casualties. One of the machine guns is jammed. The gunner tries to reload and touches the metal cover. His skin is instantly glued, rendering the gunner incapacitated. So only 3 planes remain of the entire 349 Squadron. An hour later, all who survived returned to base. Gale's plane had a lot of holes in it, and it was a miracle they escaped. His gunner is badly frostbitten. He has to send him to hospital. Meanwhile, Egan managed to get a transfer to a combat unit. 3 weeks later, all planes are repaired and preparations for camouflage begin. To the surprise of the staff, a plane crashes near the base. It was a training crew that went down. Late at night, there is an argument between British and US pilots, followed by a fistfight, all because the British have a very different approach to bombing than the Americans. The Americans prefer a targeted attack in the daytime, while the British use area bombing, for which the night is perfect. After a while, HQ prepared a new mission. This time the target is a submarine bunker. Crosby will be flying in the lead plane, 30 minutes to arrival. Thanks to the clear weather, the entire squadron is clearly visible. To hide the important buildings, the Germans have put up a smokescreen. The air defense opens fire. As they approach the desired point, they drop bombs. Curtis's plane has 2 engines out of action. Egan gives the order to drop speed to 200 and wait for the laggard. In honor of the successful mission, the commanders throw a party, but their fun is interrupted by an alarm. The Germans have learned where their base is and have attacked the town. At the morning meeting, it is reported that the next mission will involve 3 76 bombers and 200 fighters. This is the largest air armada in human history. They will need to destroy several German factories. To do this, you'll have to fly all over Germany and their ally. Yes, it's insanely dangerous, but they have a plan. 3 task forces gather over the canal and split up here. That way the Germans can only fight off the first group, then fly back for supplies. While they're gone, the other 2 groups will bomb the factories. At the end of the mission, everyone will fly to Africa, where the 12th Army will be waiting for them. On the day of the flight, a priest escorts a soldier into battle. The general gives the signal to start, although he realizes that he has sent the pilots into a real hell. 4 hours until the bomb drops. The German air defenses are trying to clear the sky, but there are too many bombers. Fighter planes come to the rescue, but they don't stand a chance against the barrage of fire. Then the Germans started using rockets. From just 1 accurate hit, the bomber is out of action. Every minute, the number of fighters only increases. The Germans use maneuverability and destroy the bombers at the end of the formation. Roy gives the order to eat all the papers and jump overboard. The gunner shouts that his hoist is jammed. He can't get out. William tries to help, but the wings of the plane start to come off. He realizes he can't save his comrade and jumps out without him. In just a few minutes, the entire second echelon has been destroyed. The group regroups. Meanwhile, the command receives a message that the Germans have taken to the sky all their planes located in Belgium. Bombers need to somehow hold out for 3 hours to fly to the right point. At the moment, the sky is a mess. Curtis's team is thinning out, and he too gives the order to jump. However, the co-pilot has been injured and will not be able to jump. Curtis is not ready to abandon his friend and is about to land the plane in a field. This was his last mistake. From the 1st Squadron, only a small fraction of the planes survive, but even their numbers are rapidly dwindling due to the superior enemy force. Gale's plane takes critical damage. The co-pilot wants to give the order to eject, but Gale orders them to sit in their seats. Suddenly, German fighters fly off to refuel, and a target begins to be seen in the distance. Thus, 1,000 bombs destroys the German war industry. Finally, all they have to do is fly to Africa. It takes 2 hours to fly to Africa, but since the fuel tank is broken, Gale gives the order to throw out everything that is not nailed to the floor, including the bombing scope. 2 hours later, the planes land in Africa. At this time, survivor William is spotted by locals. Rebels come to William and offer him a choice: surrender to the Germans or try to escape to England. Louise takes William to a cafe where other downed airmen are gathering. And for William, the choice was obvious. He has to fill out paperwork and tell them what mission they were on. After all the questions are asked, the rebels take the trio into the woods and kill one of them. After all, they are sure that this man was a spy.
You could have made a mistake.
You don't make mistakes.
The 16th of September, 43rd year. The pilots have a rule. After the 25th sortie, you are supposed to be sent home. A party is thrown in honor of the occasion. But not everyone is so lucky. 12 crews out of 25 survive. Gale and Egan are approached by a newcomer. He asks for advice on how to survive in the sky, but the majors can't give a clear answer. It's just plain luck. Egan thinks that there are a lot of new faces on the base, and if he and Gale die, they won't even be remembered. At this time, the surviving airmen are taken to their new guide, Sandra. The 8th of October, 1943, Egan meets his new girlfriend, but their fun is marred by bomb explosions. The Germans attack the city again. A new day is dawning. Today will be their 22nd flight. During this night, Lieutenant Ash starts dating their local hottie Helen. He jokingly says she is the last hottie he sees, but the girl asks him not to say that anymore. They are given a mission to complete their very first mission, which failed last time: Paris. Sandra asks the duo to repeat her actions and not say anything. With a couple of minutes left before the train leaves, the girl leaves to go to the bathroom. At that moment, the conductor enters the stall. The soldiers have no idea what he is saying and just pull out their papers. William then panics and tries to run away, but he is stopped by another gorilla. She asks him to go back and just show him his ticket. William does so.
Don't do that again. Understand?
Meanwhile, 13 planes return from the mission, but Gale's plane is not among them. The Major informs Helen that Ash was killed in action. Since Egan had a holiday today, he wakes up quietly. He buys a newspaper and learns that 30 bombers are missing. Egan immediately calls the base and asks, "How is Gale?" From the answer, he is racked with emotion and cancels his entire weekend to avenge his friend. He sits on the plane all night waiting for the mission, but is called by headquarters. Crosby is lucky to survive. He's never seen so many anti-aircraft guns. They thought their leader Gale was invulnerable, but one shell hit their plane. Before the soldiers could catch their breath, they began to prepare for another flight. Now Crosby has been transferred to headquarters and will be coordinating the mission. Their current target is the Munster railway station, which is located almost in the center of the city. This time their squadron will consist of only 17 bombers, which is unsettling for the pilots. When all the planes have taken off, the most difficult time for Crosby begins, because no matter how carefully he builds routes, everything will depend on the luck of the pilots. To cover the bombers, fighters join the mission. By this time, 4 bombers had dropped out due to technical problems. After a while, the fighters run out of fuel and fly back. The enemy air defenses are activated. As a result, one of the planes is immediately shot down. Fighter attack is next. This time, there is a huge number of them. The gunners try to fight back, but the Germans destroy the defense turrets with an accurate hit. 1 minute to drop the bombs. By this time, 3 of the 4 gunners on Egan's plane are disabled. The engines are also destroyed. He has to give the order, drop the bombs and evacuate. All Egan can do is watch his plane hurtle to the ground. The rest of the squadron starts dropping bombs. After a brief lull, the enemy attack again. The leading plane wedges and crashes into another plane. Only 1 bomber manages to survive, but the Germans are ready to finish what they started, and the gunners open fire. After a while, a single plane returns to the base, but it was from another group. The general asks where his men will land, but he is told that no one survived, and then another plane appears on the horizon. One of the gunners has a nervous breakdown and swears he'll never take to the skies again. Crosby has to listen to everyone he knows get blown up one by one. But that's the end of part 1. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you want to see a sequel. See you very soon. Bye.